So they had been traveling for some time now, winding through the farm fields, traveling by memory, weaving this way and that, looking for the best roads, the clearest path. Sometimes, in an attempt to keep with tradition and to spend rare quality time with family, you make some not so great choices about travel. And today was one of those days. But here they were, barrowing through the snow that was falling more and more, this family packed into the car, thinking the song "Over the River and Through the Woods to Grandmother's House We Go" sounds so happy and joyful in the song compared to how they were feeling right now. That Christmas Eve, leaving midday, planning to arrive early evening, the song of the angels was "Snow had fallen, snow on snow." They sang songs to keep the children entertained and distracted, which may or may not have been helpful to the driver. They played car games of finding things outside, which was more and more difficult than usual because of the thick falling snow. And eventually, as the road seemed endless and the storm didn't seem to have any letting up at all, and the fear of running out of gas in the next several miles in the middle of nowhere was starting to become a possible reality on a lonely road, that made them turn down out of fear to save on fuel. They turned down the heat. So now in this cooling car, not a good safety idea. Now in this cooling car in a snowstorm, they decided to look for shelter. No towns for several miles. They hadn't seen any. They knew certainly no gas stations. So the new game for the children was, okay, kids, look for a farmhouse that has a light on. And the first one to find it gets a special treat. And the special treat was not to be frozen in the car. So after what felt like hours, which was probably just several minutes, found one, a child joyfully raised from the back seat. Indeed, this was true. Faint winter lights hung with garland around the wraparound porch of the old farmhouse just ahead. The driveway filled with snow, not passable for their small car. So at the end of this long country driveway leading to the farm, they piled out of the car. They grabbed what bags they thought were maybe necessary for their survival. They left the gifts and the food. They took what they could, trudged up the driveway, and they got to the porch, where light was streaming out of the windows. They could see faintly a family gathered in the house in the dining room for games and food on this snowy Christmas Eve day. Surprised, certainly, by footsteps on the porch and a knock at the door, they looked out the window at this family now on their porch. They opened the door with the feel of warmth and the feel of fresh-baked food pouring out, falling out the door like a blanket upon them. A woman opened the door and said to the mother, "Oh my, don't tell me you're Mary." And it was hard to believe, but she was. She said, "Well, I am, but this isn't Joseph, and these two here are definitely not Jesus." So trying to get out of the biblical narrative, the father said, "We're about out of gas, and we have been just creeping along in the snow. If you have some in your barn or somewhere, that could help us just get to the next nearby town." And the woman looked at the kids and the weary parents and said, "I'm sorry, I can't give you any gas because it's not safe for you to drive. So come on in. We've got enough food for an army in here, plenty of room in this old house for you all. If you don't mind playing games and sharing a holiday meal with us, you can wait out the storm here." And they did. This is a true story. The children played games together. The adults told stories and talked about weather, the storms of years past, of families and holidays, and the blessings and curses of family road trips. The storm continued on, and the winter sky grew dark, and they found enough room to even stay the night. There was room at this inn, room enough, shelter enough for the wayfaring strangers needing a place to rest in the midst of storm. Did this really happen? Asks any hearer of this old family story. But that's never the point of hardly any good story. The answer almost always is yes and no, at least not exactly, but some of it did. Did this really happen? Do people really find themselves stuck in a storm? Do people really find themselves needing help from strangers? Do people really find their doors opened in welcome for those in need? The first two, stuck in a storm, needing help, that happens every single day. The last one, our doors open in welcome, that's more questionable. That, in part, is up to each of us to make the story true in whatever way we can. And yes, this one did happen, and so often doesn't, but what a world it could be if it happened more. And we opened doors and shared food and shared warmth and told stories and played games and sang songs, enough for a soul to warm up, to get some rest, and to be ready to get back on the road and face another day. Rebecca Parker writes, "The world comes indoors at midwinter and is our guest of honor. Arms hug the arriving logs that clatter in to take their place by the fire. The forests which we've called and asked to come travel long roads to get here. Finally, she arrives, tired but still bursting with the energy of high mountain cascades and starry nights. She tumbles across the threshold. Soon the whole house is filled with the world's presence, and it is up to us now to make her feel at home. Let this be the year," she writes, "we fully welcome the world. We fully welcome the stranger. We fully welcome those on the porch. That we treat them right and lift our glasses in a toast to them, thank them, we keep our resolutions, and we mean it when we say, joy to the world." May it be so, and amen. During our hymn, Green, which the lyrics are in your order of service, I invite the small number of children who are here, if any have brought a guest at your table box that we've been